So yes, I did very well. And as I said, that was 8 years ago. And looking back in those 8 years, I haven't had any asthma medication, any medication really at all. I no longer snore. I go to bed way too late. I drink far too much red wine. And I never have a headache. I'm never tired or sleepy during the day. And looking back, I hardly get any colds anymore. I do get the odd sniffle, but you know, I haven't had bronchitis once. Not once. I used to get it every 18 months like clockwork. And I put my kids through. Thomas no longer sneezes non-stop for 6 months of the year with hay fever. We don't have any tissues in our house that he can leave in his pocket on laundry day. And Amy doesn't have any asthma at all. She doesn't take any medication whatsoever. She's now 20 and she's got the rest of her life not having to put up with these conditions. She plays lots of sport. Now, Amy was about 13 when I discovered this. Thomas was about, 15 or 16. And they've got the rest of their young lives, hopefully, the rest of their lives not having to put up with these conditions. Not only the particular condition they had at the time, but all the other conditions, the energy and the sleep and the hay fever and all the rest of it. I was 45, I don't have as much time left as they do. But what time I do have left is no comparison compared to what it was like before. We just don't know, you just don't know what you're missing out on, you know. So what I did over the next couple of years, I kept working in IT. I worked for IBM for a while, but I was always intrigued by this because I'd worked hard with my kids and I felt so rewarded that I was able to change all that and control things. So about 4.5 years ago, I started studying to become a practitioner. It took me 2 years part-time. And during those 2 years, I had to observe 70 people going through a Buteyko course, case studies and the works. And 2.5 years ago, I became a full-time practitioner. And this is all I do, all I've done for 2.5 years, 40 weeks a year. I've personally taught over 1,300 people myself. And what I find these days is that most people who do Buteyko today do it specifically for snoring and sleep apnea. Most people, 70%. Still good 30% of people with asthma, sinusitis, anxiety, chronic fatigue, disturbed sleep, but most of them for snoring and sleep apnea. One of the reasons is the rise of treatment of sleep apnea and also the increase in the incredibly strong drugs for asthmatics who have their asthma suppressed, think they're okay. And the amazing thing about seeing all these people is when people learn to breathe normally, everybody gets better. So let me explain how it works. When you breathe, we breathe the air. Now the air that we breathe, the air in here, is made up mainly of nitrogen. Now nitrogen is what's known, 78% is nitrogen. Now nitrogen is an inert gas. Inert just means it doesn't do anything. 21% of the air is oxygen. This is the key gas we humans need. We need oxygen for the growth and regeneration of all of our cells and tissues. It's vital. But there's another gas involved, carbon dioxide. In the air, there's virtually none. There's such a small amount, it's almost negligible. 0.03% carbon dioxide, tiny amount. However, in our bodies, in our lungs, we need to have at least 3% carbon dioxide in order for us to be alive, and as much as 6.5%. As it turns out, the more the better. Now, if we have this much higher proportion on pressure of the gas carbon dioxide in our bodies, in our lungs, and there's none in the air, then clearly we must produce it because we can't get it from the air. And we do. It's part of metabolism, respiration, particularly when we exercise, we produce more carbon dioxide. And many people kind of think this, many people kind of think, oh yes, we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide, which is a bit of an oversimplification. We actually breathe out heaps of oxygen as well. Otherwise we couldn't give people mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So what happens when you breathe? When you breathe, you drag this mixture called air into your lungs, finds its way down your bronchial tubes, the little sacs at the end of the bronchial tubes, the alveoli, and there the gases exchange into our bloodstream. And then our heart does the right thing and pumps the blood with the oxygen to all of our cells and tissues. The way this works is with something called hemoglobin, chemical symbol HB. Well, It's actually the protein that the oxygen binds with in order to be transported around our body. The whole molecule is called oxyhemoglobin, and we've literally got millions of these molecules in our red blood cells transporting the oxygen around our body. Now, it's all very well to have the oxygen bonded to the hemoglobin, but what we need to happen is for the bond to break easily and efficiently so that the maximum amount of oxygen gets to all our cells and tissues that our body craves. Now, what determines how well this works was discovered by a Scandinavian scientist called Christian Bohr around the turn of the century, 1900, 1907, somewhere like that. He discovered that there is a connection between the amount of carbon dioxide in a person's lungs and how easily the bond breaks, and more importantly, how much oxygen ends up getting to all your cells and tissues. The more carbon dioxide we have, the more easily the bond breaks, and so the more oxygen we end up getting. Now, for people who overbreathe, remember this? All of us with these respiratory conditions. What happens when you breathe 3 times what is normal is your body ends up with low levels of carbon dioxide. So there's no gas in the air, there's no pressure of carbon dioxide gas in the air, there's much higher pressure in our body where our body leaks it and loses it. It's called the Bohr-Verigo displacement curve. He worked on it with an Italian guy, and they gave it a special name called the Bohr effect. So put more simply, the Bohr effect states this: in order to get more oxygen, we need to retain more carbon dioxide by breathing less. I just said you'll all get more oxygen if you breathe less. Doesn't sound right, does it? Breathe less, get more oxygen. Is this guy crazy? Everyone thinks if I breathe more, I get more oxygen. Well, does deep breathing give you more oxygen? It certainly gives you more air, but does it give you more oxygen? Well, there's a good way of understanding this, perhaps. I don't know whether you've ever experienced or ever observed anybody who deep breathes to excess. Have you ever observed or experienced anyone have an anxiety or panic attack? They breathe like this, they lose control of their breathing. Now, if it gets serious, their heart starts leaping out of their chest, they get very stressed. Often they think they're going to have a heart attack. Their toes and fingertips get tingly, they get dizzy, and if they don't stop, they faint. We know why this happens. The tingling is a lack of oxygen to the extremities. The dizziness is a lack of oxygen to the brain. And the fainting is the next step. And some of you may know that there's an old-fashioned but very effective remedy for somebody who has a hyperventilation attack. What is it? You get a paper bag. It doesn't have to be brown. You can get a paper bag and you place it over the person's nose and their mouth, and you get them to suddenly breathe into the paper bag. And when they breathe into the paper bag, what happens is that the paper bag contains their breathing and slows down their breathing and controls their breathing a little bit better. So when they slow down their breathing, they start to retain more of this carbon dioxide that they're hyperventilating off. And when they retain more carbon dioxide, due to the Bohr effect, their body gets more oxygen. They recover. They get control back. They don't faint. So we use this example so people can understand. Does deep breathing give you more oxygen? The answer is no, it gives you less. But the whole ignorant world out there is going to try and tell you to take a deep breath. Don't go taking a deep breath. It's not good for you, especially if you've got these symptoms. So let's put all this together and see how it affects and how our bodies give us these different conditions. Let me start with nasal conditions. A little while ago, I asked you to try and breathe through your nose for the next 24 hours. And most of you have been very good. I've been watching you. Okay? But for many of us, it's just a matter of remembering, because we've been breathing all these years and we never think about breathing. It's an automatic thing. Okay, we just got to remember. But a lot of us, it's difficult to breathe through your nose because we get a blocked nose, yeah?